Well, 3D certainly does seem to be coming at us from every angle, as we were promised last year. The movies are hitting the big screen, the football's hitting the small screen, 3D Blu-rays are going on sale, and 3D video games are threatening to melt our eyeballs right out of our heads. And now we're starting to see the laptop manufacturers get the bug too. Here's Mark Chislak with a look at the first clutch of 3D portables.
With 3D movies such as Pixar's Up and James Cameron's Avatar packing picture palaces across the globe, heavyweight Hollywood studios have fallen in love with 3D. Avatar has already grossed in excess of £1.8 billion, making it the most successful movie of all time. And while cash registers at cinemas have been ringing, consumer electronics giants like Sony, Panasonic, LG and Samsung have all become eager to muscle in on 3D. All of them are planning to launch 3D-enabled TVs and Blu-ray players for the domestic market. Most of this domestic kit will launch in the summer, but there are a couple of bits of recently launched technology which could persuade the 3D early adopter to break out the silly-looking goggles. Taiwanese purveyors of personal computers, Asus and Acer, have both produced 3D-enabled laptops for very different ends of the market. The fire-breathing Asus G51J 3D is a fully spec'd 15-inch gaming rig, complete with Core i7 processor, two 500GB hard drives, and an NVIDIA GeForce GTX GPU. As it's a gaming rig, its chassis isn't what you'd call tasteful. No Jonathan Ive-style minimalism here. In fairness, almost any car featuring on Pimp My Ride would be considered sober by this computer's standards. And, as you'd expect, with that spec list, this machine comes with a premium price tag. In contrast, Acer's offering is a far more modest affair. The Aspire 5738DZG is much more of a middle-of-the-road workhorse laptop, featuring a Pentium dual-core processor and 4GB of RAM with a 500GB hard drive. This is essentially a stock laptop that's had 3D capability shoehorned into its rather uninspiring plastic innards. As a result, it's priced much more in line with other average, mid-range, mid-spec computers. In fact, it's probably the most average PC it's possible to purchase. And while these wildly different machines exist at different ends of the price and specification spectrum, they generate 3D in different ways too. The Asus makes use of NVIDIA's 3D tech and comes with a pair of active shutter glasses and an IR transmitter which communicates with those specs. Quite apart from these green and black goggles' ability to act as an instant repellent to the opposite sex, the active shutter system works by alternately darkening each lens in rapid succession. The screen itself displays 2D images for the left and right eye. When these perspectives are processed by the brain, we perceive the screen image to be 3D with much greater depth. The active shutter glasses are a bit heavier than spectacles or sunglasses because they're powered and will need to be charged up before use. Acer uses the much simpler passive system. The screen's coated in a polarising film, and the supplied glasses are much more like the polarised specs that are standard issue at most 3D cinemas these days. To be fair, both of these systems work fairly well in creating the illusion of 3D, although the active system on the Asus seems to have a slight edge on the Acer's passive 3D, creating a richer, better-looking 3D experience. But all is not rosy in the 3D garden. That brings me to the biggest problem that I can currently see with 3D capable computers, and that is content. Both of these computers come loaded with material demonstrating still pictures and moving video in 3D. However, for the time being, with the exception of video games, this is pretty much the only 3D content that can run on them. There are plans to create websites which make use of 3D, and any video game with DirectX support can, in theory, be converted to 3D quite easily. Titles like superior post-apocalyptic shooter Metro 2033 and last year's Avatar tie-in have been designed from the ground up with 3D in mind, and there are a few 3D short films available online. But for now, that's your lot. Serious 3D support seems to be behind blockbuster movies, which will start to appear on Blu-ray and DVD a little later this year.